What if to rent a flat, start a new job, see your GP, or even report a pothole, you needed a government-issued digital ID? That's the idea making headlines tonight. A BritCard style identity system for every adult in the UK. Some say it will cut fraud and make services smoother. Others say it's a gateway to constant checks, data leaks, and mission creep. In this video, I'll break down what's being proposed, why it's so controversial, and what it means for UK citizens and for others around the world, where digital IDs and real ID debates are already simmering. We've seen it before. ID cards were floated back in the late 2000s and pulled after fierce pushback. Now the idea is back, modernised, digitised, and pitched as common sense. The sale pitch this time? Less benefit fraud, fewer illegal workers, easier access to services, maybe even pre-populated tax returns. Sounds great on paper, but the devil is in the detail, how it's implemented, what gets linked behind the scenes, and whether opting out is truly an option or just a penalty in disguise. So what's actually being talked about? Well, the concept circulating is a mandatory digital ID. Think of it as an app or a card that verifies you against a central database when you do everyday things, such as onboarding for a job, signing a tenancy, trying to prove your age or identity online. The headline benefits being touted are cut to welfare fraud by making verification tighter, reduction in ID fraud in banking and finance, speeding up tax returns by pulling in known data, helping enforce immigration rules by making right-to-work checks watertight. On the surface, very reasonable aims, but the question isn't whether the goals sound good, it's whether a universal ID scheme actually solves these without creating much bigger problems. And then there's the core criticisms, and these are put into 5 different areas. The first is centralised honeypot risk. A single authoritative identity record that touches tax, benefits, employment history, driving records, and addresses is a prize target. Large public systems get probed constantly, phishing, credential stuffing, and inside errors. The more systems you interlink, the bigger the blast radius when something goes wrong. A breach here just wouldn't be a leak. It would be people's lives, their identities, finances, movements, all just sitting in one place. The second, mission creep. Policymakers are already hinting that the system could expand over time. That's bureaucratic speak for, once we build it, it won't stay small. Today, it's right to work. Tomorrow, it's NHS, travel cards, council services, banks, age checks, ticketing, logins across the web. Each new link increases convenience and control, especially when access to essentials can be throttled by a single identity layer. The third is the illegal immigration claim. If someone's working cash in hand or an employer is ignoring checks, a digital ID only works if every employer, landlord, and platform uses it. Otherwise, the same avoidance route remains, while compliant citizens shoulder the friction and the pain. The fourth is the fraud and error paradox. Will it actually reduce fraud? Potentially in some places, but fraudsters always adapt. More worryingly, systemic errors scale. If pre-populated tax returns pull the wrong data or an algorithm mislabels income, the fix won't be a 2-minute phone call. You're contesting the state's single source of truth. If money's auto-debited and they add a 0 by mistake, good luck trying to fight that one. And the fifth is consent theatre. Schemes like this are often started as optional, then quietly life without them becomes impractical. You don't have to sign up, but you won't be able to rent, work, or file this form easily. That's not choice, that's pressure. But on the flip side, we already have to prove ID today. True, right to work checks, passports, driving licenses, utility bills. While they remain imperfect, they're federated, not fused. If your telco loses a bill, your whole identity doesn't topple. The push now is to unify and centralise. That brings convenience, but concentrates risk much further. And then there's the public sentiment towards this. The early reactions are very loud and clear. Snap polls on social media show overwhelming scepticism, and petitions opposing digital ID are surging. Now, obviously, online polls aren't perfect evidence, but they do flag a yawning trust gap. In plain English, people don't think the government will limit itself, protect their data, or resist monetizing it down the line. And for those over in the US, you've got Real ID for travel, state level, digital IDs in Apple Wallet trials, and growing debates around age gating and online identity for safety. The same design questions apply. Is the ID mandatory in practice? What systems does it unlock? And what does it lock you out of if you don't have it? Who can actually query the data? How long will it be kept? And how do you challenge any errors? If you can't answer those clearly, you don't have an ID system, you have a control surface. Now, if the government insists on building it, there needs to be minimum safeguards. And these are non-negotiable. Data minimization, identity proof, not data extraction. More of a prove you are over 18, not a date of birth plus home address plus driving number plus NHS number. That is taking it too far. There needs to be local storage and selective disclosure. They need to use proven cryptographic credentials where the user controls what's shown and avoid a central lookup for every interaction. The next is there needs to be hard legal walls, explicit limits on function creep, with clauses in there and requirements around votes in Parliament for any expansion. There needs to be breach penalties that if the state or contractors lose data, there should be automatic notifications, compensation pathways, and independent mandatory audits. And there needs to be real opt-outs, a path that remains viable so that there is no second-class citizen treatment for people who honestly want to refuse this. So what are the practical takeaways? Don't get hypnotized by the word digital. Ask exactly what will be stored, linked and shared. Watch the wording of optional versus required to access this or that. If you support tighter checks, push for targeted fixes where abuse is proven, not a universal identity net that captures everyone. If you oppose it, make noise now, because these systems tend to be decided in principle first and scrutinized later, as seen with the Online Safety Act. A smart, privacy-preserving identity layer could make life easier. A centralised, ever-expanding ID that you need for everyday rights will make life simpler to control. Those are two very different futures, and I want to try to make sure that I describe the small print before it becomes the new normal and help you do the same. If you found this useful, please like, subscribe and share it, because once infrastructure like this is built, it rarely gets rolled back. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.